Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the witnesses for being here. Congressman, thanks for being here. There are many Jewish families and organizations in my district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who are integral to our community. My district also has a large evangelical population that prays for the peace of Jerusalem, and I'm proud to be one of those. We also have the Sherwin-Miller Museum, which hosts a sobering exhibit educating, as you just mentioned, citizens on the realities of the Holocaust. Understanding and remembering history is important if we wish to avoid repeating the horrors of the past, just as my colleague from Illinois just mentioned. Every American should be outraged by what we're seeing across the country. These demonstrations are pro-terrorism and anti-American and should be universally condemned. This isn't just about expression, it's a dangerous endorsement of violence on American soil. It's alarming. Protesters scaling buildings, waving terrorist propaganda, repeating slogans rooted in hatred, barring Jews from entering buildings, holding janitors captive. This isn't activism, it's extremism, borderline terrorism. It's deeply troubling to see the lack of moral clarity in university leaders who refuse to condemn anti-Semitic demonstrations on campuses. It's a sad day in America when parents at school board meetings are deemed terrorists, but Hamas's brutal violence against women and children is defended, even celebrated on our campuses across America. Unfortunately, this confusion and chaos at higher institutions of higher ed is not an anomaly. For decades, prestigious colleges have slowly soiled their reputations by embracing Marxism, Confucius institutes, and moral relativism at the expense of merit, virtue, and truth. Education is no longer the mission. Whether intentionally or not, this is stupidity. Universities have allowed radical ideologies, often funded by the Chinese Communist Party, to indoctrinate our students. Universities have strayed from their academic mission in pursuit of DEI, teaching students to make judgments of people based on race, gender, and sexual identity instead of teaching students to respect every person as an individual with dignity and inherent worth. All is not lost, though. In the face of blatant hatred and anti-Semitism, millions of Americans of all races and religions have shown support, love, and kindness to our Jewish friends and neighbors. Support for Hamas is support for terrorism, plain and simple. Organizations that funnel money to terrorists or take money from known terrorist organizations should not hold tax-exempt status. As members of this Ways and Means Committee, we hold the power of the purse and tax-exempt status. With that power comes great responsibility to provide oversight on charities and universities that potentially abuse their tax-exempt status. American universities continue to receive billions of dollars in the form of taxpayer subsidies, tax breaks, and federal payments, yet anti-Semitic incidences increase on our campus. Higher ed should not continue to receive taxpayer money in the form of federal payments, grants, or tax exemptions if they continue to turn a blind eye to anti-Semitism on their campuses. Dr. Pedaluzzi, I understand you have written extensively about DEI efforts on college campuses, particularly about how these efforts fundamentally alter the course of institutions' academic mission. These are the same institutions that receive billions of taxpayer dollars each year through the tax-exempt status. Do you believe these institutions who either implement DEI policies or promote anti-Semitism are worthy of taxpayer dollars? Should American taxpayers be forced to subsidize this institutional hatred?
Not if they continue once they're warned. So I think universities need to be on warning that this is something this committee is looking at. I'd also like to say a little bit about how profoundly DEI has reshaped these institutions. We're talking about an investment of $25 to $35 million at large universities, like University of Texas System or University of Florida System or Berkeley. That's $250 million over a decade, right? That allows an army of activists to incorporate DEI screens into hiring processes, into tenure policies. They create mandatory trainings that teach young people to make snap judgment about each other based on race stereotypes, race exclusionary graduations, bias response teams, forbidden word lists, new curriculum. Right? This has profoundly transformed our institutions.
Thank you. Mr. Marcus, can you tell us what role you've seen DEI programs play in the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses?
Congressman Hern, I've seen a mixed bag. In candor, we have seen some students who say that the DEI offices have been a help to them when they face anti-Semitism. We've seen many who say that it is not helpful to them. And we have seen some who will say that it is a problem for a few reasons. First, because DEI offices in so many cases fail to even recognize that Jewish students exist or that anti-Semitism is a problem. Second, because they too often have this notion of oppressors and oppressed with nothing in between, and that sort of simplicity isn't helpful. And third, because once they make that division, they too often say, well, Jews are not among the oppressed, they're among the oppressors, and they fall back on stereotypes that are harmful both to Jews and everyone else.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.